Celtics Talk podcast is presented by 24autogroup.com. New England gets more at 24.
What's up, everybody? What's up, Giles?
50.
50.
Just go for 50.
50 burger.
You said order of wings. 50-piece wing from Jaylen Brown.
I was slightly off. I should have gone for a burger.
Eastern Conference Player of the Month, runner-up to Jalen Brunson. How's that for a response?
I'm skipping right to my headline, which is, thank you, NBA. Thank you for your contribution to the Jaylen Brown Motivation Fund. Because Jaylen Brown, the confluence of Jaylen already playing like an MVP level, the snub and his much online criticism of it, and the fact that the Clippers were playing well and Kawhi Leonard on the other side and Kawhi had been awesome, and it all just like a polar vortex of, I don't know if that's a real thing, but
It sounds right to me.
yeah, on the West Coast somehow. That was a terrible analogy, but it all came together.
It was a perfect storm.
It was the perfect storm. I'm not going to try to make it. It's too late in the evening to make sense. But Jaylen Brown was fantastic in this game. The shot making, Giles, was utterly ridiculous.
He scored. So when he got to 40, he had 41 points on 20 field goal attempts. 41 points on. That's what I started to look at his scoring history
Right.
and some of his best games and try to figure out, okay, this has got to be an all-timer as far as efficiency goes. And I think that the last 50-point game was on 30 shot attempts, I believe, against Orlando. It was either
Still
29 or 30. That was in overtime.
Yep.
This was in regulation with time to spare. You know, if like the Clippers had kept this game close, then who knows what Jaylen Brown goes for.
It is fascinating to think. And it was funny. I was watching, I love reading lips and trying to see what so he came out of the game, and I forget who asked him, but maybe Simon said something like, "Was that your career high?" And he said, "No, tied it." And they all the whole entire bench is like, "Oh," and they kind of look at Joe, send him back in. It's not going to happen at that point. He probably should have got an and one on the 50-point bucket, but you know what? No one's going to quibble with that as long as you get to the number. And it's weird how 48 feels just slightly more diminished than 50. And he was great regardless of what the final number was going to be. I go back to it. You could tell from the jump in this game, Jaylen was super motivated. I think we all knew based on the happenings that he was going to be motivated out of these. But he picks up Kawhi on one of the first possessions, chases him around, makes it difficult. And I said, okay. He's pretty locked in, ends up spending pretty much half of Kawhi's floor time. Jaylen is the primary defender. And then he started making shots, and it was just like, ooh, this feels a little different. This is a guy who's making some tough pull-ups, who's hitting some tough threes. This could be a night for Jaylen. And then it was weird because, Derek White, it felt like, oh, Derek White might just kind of take over the night.
It was the Derek White show at halftime, even though Jaylen Brown had 20 points at halftime.
Easy to forget now.
Derek White had 23 points and 6 assists at the half. And they were up by 8. They were up by 14 after the first quarter. But, yeah, it was about Derek White in the first half. Mm-hmm. I mean, the two of them combined, right? They combined for 43 in the first half. But to me, it was more about Derek White and the creative ways he was finding to score. I want to circle back to, though, you talk about him picking up Kawhi right out of the jump. I thought Joe Mazzulla had some very interesting comments after the game.
It was interesting that Joe comes out. And Joe doesn't often peel back the curtain like this, but he was asked kind of directly, did Jaylen ask to...
Gary Washburn asked him.
Did Jaylen ask to defend Kawhi? Because, even going into it, you might have heard me say it, Scal was talking to our pregame show, and he said, yeah, I think they're going to, I hope we get to see Kawhi versus Jaylen. I said, you know what? I just don't know how much Kawhi is going to guard Jaylen on the other end. Usually when a guy's rolling like this, when they have other options, they've got other wings they could throw at him. I suspected that they'd more want Kawhi to score and limit his reps on Jaylen. And then I kind of thought conversely, I don't know, with the way the Celtics lineup has typically been constructed, Jordan Walsh would take some reps, but obviously the Celtics make the change tonight. We'll get into that a little bit more later in the program. But I thought, because they ended up shifting Hauser into the starting lineup, it put a little bit more emphasis on Jaylen had to kind of guard one of those two. He had to pick up Harden or Kawhi sort of at the start. And that takes nothing away from Sam Hauser. Sam Hauser actually had a very good defensive game yet again. But I love that it gave them the flexibility to be more of like an offensive unit because Jaylen was saying, "Don't worry, I got this" to start the game.
And he sent the text on the plane that they were leaving Sacramento. Said, "I want Kawhi." And again, you also, I thought the other interesting thing that Joe Mazzulla said there was, it felt like they took note of the fact that the Clippers had won 6 in a row by 13-plus points in all 6, and that Kawhi Leonard had 55, and then was it 44, 45 in another, and was on this tear. Celtics took note of that. So it wasn't just the fact that Jaylen Brown didn't get the Eastern Conference Player of the Month, which he
a little bit
deserved.
Of everything.
Yeah, it was, and they're busy talking about how good the Clippers are, and the Clippers come in as 1.5-point favorites. It as you brought up, it's kind of a confluence of things going on there that led to the Celtics just playing maybe their best game of the season.
How big is the Celtics plan that he can't just go like, "Hey Joe, hey Joe, I'll take Kawhi"?
Can you yell and you know how like the pressurization in an airplane? I don't know if it would travel that far.
Everyone's got those like noise canceling headphones on.
Yeah.
Like
Plus, you're gonna disturb. Like if people are trying to sleep, you can't be yelling from the back of the plane or the front of the plane or whatever it is.
If I think on Breeze I get free messaging, but I'm not paying like the $8 for the internet. Like, I can last 2 hours.
Something
on a plane.
tells me they don't have to pay for the internet on their flights.
Probably not. But Jaylen Brown also, if you had to, has the money to pay for the internet.
But I don't want to get on a sidetrack on this. Sometimes it's such a pain in the ass to actually pay for the internet and then get it working. It's
probably top 5 most aggravating things in the world.
Like you would be like, I would pay twice as much if like it wasn't as
like. It's 2026. How are we not more advanced with internet on planes at this point?
Yes, well,
are we close? I don't know. I'm not gonna. You're right. We could do a whole podcast on that. And at 1:52 in the a.m., this is where we go.
But again, like this was already a guy that came into the season motivated.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like every other year his name is in trade discussions, or, you know, is he a number one?
Right.
You know, what's his team going to look like?
There's always some question.
Their win total set at 41. They're not on Christmas Day for the first time in a decade. There's all these, like, slights. And Jaylen Brown goes out and averages 32 points for the month of December, doesn't get to play on Christmas Day. And it's like, you know what? What else do I have to do? Okay, you want 50 and guard Kawhi?
Well, let's take a step back real quick. Was he snubbed?
I think he was. Yes.
Okay, I'm with you.
I think he was. I will say, like, I don't follow the Knicks every single day. So Jalen Brunson did have a very good month of December.
He did.
But I think that the NBA Cup portion of it probably is what put him over the top. And
the 3 guys that sit in the room in like New York and throw darts at the board to pick these things, I agree. They probably said, "Hey, you know, we really got to reward Jalen Brunson for that NBA Cup victory."
So yeah, I guess my big picture thing on this is, it's Player of the Month. Like, Jaylen Brown's been the NBA Finals MVP.
Yeah.
It's been the Eastern Conference Finals MVP. Those awards, like, really matter. This is more just a motivation factor
100%.
than anything else.
This is, Scal always says it. NBA players are lunatics, and they find the most, like, they find one quote. It might not even be a real quote, but they will find something that will motivate them, and they will cling to it, and they will use it as motivation. Like the Celtics do the whole, we don't hear the outside noise. They clip like everything that said gap year, and they use it against the writers every time. And they're like, look, this guy thought this was going to be a gap year for you, and it's like, I love it. I love that they're wired that way, where like anything you can find is a little bit of motivation for this team. And so I don't think Jaylen sits at home going, poppycock, like not the December Player of the Month. But man, it gave him a little extra fuel, and like, look, need something to talk about on these Twitch streams and whatever you need to do to get yourself going.
And by the way, like, if he doesn't have the game he has tonight, the Celtics win this one. Because I guess the one thing I don't want to be lost in this is that I didn't feel like the Clippers played that poorly.
No,
like, this was a 6-point game with Jaylen already at like 39.
That's a good point.
It was
it's as much of a total team win, despite the fact that one dude went for 50 points, and yet you kind of needed everybody, because if you didn't get everybody cooking, it might have got difficult.
It was 96-90. Wow. It was 96-90, and the Celtics closed the third on a 17-9 run.
The shout out, like the shot making from pretty much, I mean, out of the gates to the middle of the third was just on an unreal level. I was looking at the advanced tracking at that point.
It was a really fun, entertaining game.
It was like in the 90th percentile for every offensive category except for rim shots. Like for whatever neither team could make good quality looks, and maybe that was just rim defense was contributing against that. But like the 3-pointers, like how many times did you see like Chris Dunn did 2 DX like motions towards the Celtics bench? And Derek Jones Jr. was making threes. I'm like, literally everyone the Clippers set to the corner was making threes, and I was like, they got to cool off at some point, right? But on the other hand, Anthony Simons carried you for a little bit. I mean, Derek White's floater game was insane. He was cooking from beyond the arc early. As we said, he could have taken over this game. I just thought that the shot making in this game was on a high level, and it gave it that playoff vibe. It gave it that it mattered a little bit more than a normal regular season game. And it was just a really fun game to watch. Like I'm not going to lie, some of these 10 o'clock games, it's a chore. When we're sitting there at 1 a.m., I'm thinking,
that was fun. It was fun.
What am I doing with my life? But here I am at 157, and I'm like, you know what? I kind of like this. This is fun.
Guess how many guys had multiple threes in that third quarter?
Ooh. This is a deep cut. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna at least 3. I'm gonna say 5.
5 is right.
Yes.
5 different players had multiple threes in the third quarter. Simons and Jaylen Brown had 3 each.
Wow.
And then the Clippers had Derek Jones Jr., Brook Lopez, and Chris Dunn. Each had 2.
I mean, Chris Dunn was doing like
it was just
hand gestures. I'm like, what is going on right now? Chris Dunn is the guy you want. No offense to Chris Dunn. Although, how about that for a full circle? Remember, there was a lot of people on draft night that really wanted Chris Dunn.
Yeah.
And here we are in 2026, and him and Jaylen Brown are still going shot for shot. It's a different level of player, but shout out Chris Dunn. Having a vehicle you can rely on, that's important. That's why you can rely on 24 Auto Group. They will treat you like family. And that's because they are family owned and operated. They're honest, easy to work with, and they just get it. Whether you're looking for something sporty, something luxurious, or just a solid everyday ride, 24 Auto Group always comes through. With 9 brands and 11 locations across New England, there's something for everyone. And here's the best part. They've got the knack to save you more on a new or pre-owned vehicle, and the knack to pay you more for your trade, up to $2,400 over book value. You can even drive home with just $24 down. So if you want the best deal without the runaround, go see my guys at 24 Auto Group, because you always get more at 24. Online at 24autogroup.com.
You brought up Derek White, who I guess he was the story of the first half. How about the other stories within this as well?
Like it. You're reading my mind.
Yeah.
Let's. I don't have these in order of what I want to talk about.
Okay.
I do want to say Anthony Simons.
Yep.
Let's take a step back. Phenomenal trip.
Yep.
Thought offensively he's sort of figured it out where he fits. I think Joe's figured it out, like what sub lineups can kind of get him activated. And yeah, he had a couple quiet halves. Like I think he had 14 points the first half the other night, and then didn't have anything in the second half. But he was really impactful tonight. Yeah. And outside of that Portland game where, maybe his emotions were a little running hot, being back there. But I thought the plus minus numbers from December don't lie. He's been good in that regard. But I feel like he really had a good trip.
He had a good trip, and tonight it felt like he had 5 threes. Each one of them came
mattered.
at an impactful time.
Yeah. Next on my list of dudes we needed to talk about, Jordan Walsh.
Yeah.
Goes, so, I mean, I wouldn't say it's a surprise because they had flipped the starting lineup in the second half the other night, and Sam Hauser got in there. And I think, look, that was the lineup they started the year with. and I think I don't know if Joe had a plan ever to get back to it, but because obviously there were some weaknesses with it, especially rebounding-wise. But it's clear, and Joe said it tonight, that they wanted that lineup because they felt like they could take advantage of the Clippers with their offense and spreading the floor and having extra shooters out there, and it bore itself out. Like Derek had pretty much whenever John Collins was in the action, they knew they could get a good look off of it. So they just generated a bunch of clean threes. Harden obviously doesn't scramble around and like to contest threes. So they got a lot of good looks early, and it set a tone of, all right, like I didn't think they were going to going for 140 plus today. But so getting Sam in that starting lineup activates the offense a little bit. Jordan Walsh comes in and plays probably his best game in a week and a half. And now some of that was the illness, but this was much closer to what we've seen from Jordan Walsh when he was in the starting lineup, and got a Tommy Award off of it because he really was. He was blocking shots. He was creating. He was knocking down shots. Super encouraging after, like, we're all sitting here going, what's going on with Jordan Walsh?
Yeah, 13 points, 13 rebounds. Eddie had a great comment.
Really had 13 rebounds?
13 and 13.
That's crazy.
He had been in the starting lineup since November 12th. That was when they made the switch. So it had been a pretty large sample size, and they played extremely well with him in the starting lineup. And Eddie's point was, rather than kind of pout or start to doubt like your role changing for tonight's game, he just came off the bench and gave them everything he had, and 13 points and 13 rebounds and a plus 24. I think that's phenomenal. And I think also, like, going forward for this team, whether it's next year or 2 years from now, whatever it may be, whether or not Jordan Walsh is in the starting lineup or coming off the bench, if he's able to do whatever, that just, again, it gives this team more options.
I just started my car.
Did you really?
We're going to wind down. 2:01 a.m. In general, this was a good trip. I think we would have said, it's so weird how, like the same way that 48 sounds just not as glitzy as 50. 4-1 sounds a whole lot better than 3-2. And like it's not a huge difference, and you knew they were going to probably stumble somewhere along the way. You don't go on a 5-game road trip and not, have to deal with some difficulty. It's weird that the Portland game, which was, kind of a winnable game. But you know what? Like, the fact that they were yet again got up against the really good opponent.
How many turnovers did they have in that Portland game again? Was it 20 or 21?
So they had, 6 tonight? And
6
I think
tonight.
they had 6 in the first 3 minutes against Portland, where they
or in the last 3
kind of
minutes.
threw it all over the gym. So, again, travel. Maybe the Wi-Fi wasn't as good. Jaylen couldn't make any text that night and conspired against them. But, here we are. Celtics are now, when you said it on the postgame show, I was like, what, 10 games over 500?
10
games over 500 for a team that started 0-3. Remarkable where they are. They're creeping up on the Knicks at the top of the Eastern Conference. The schedule is still very advantageous. We're supposed to be over at the Garden on Wednesday night, but no more Jokic, no Valanciunas right now. Even the tougher games have kind of come back to earth a little bit. There is still a chance if the Celtics can continue to be laser focused. I think 11 of the 16 games in January were against teams under 500. And so there's a chance here to really kind of just put yourself in the driver's seat. And Giles, you know what I've been saying about February. Could be another guy coming back in the lineup. At least that conversation's going to kick to a whole nother gear. It's like we're an embarrassment of riches. I know people are going to be focused on football tomorrow. I know people are going to be focused on football for a while. I know they got their own MVP over there. But do we have 2 MVPs in town?
Conversation's going to only get louder.
What are the odds on Jaylen Dunn with the Jokic stuff? I don't mean to put you on the spot here, but...
You mean what are the current MVP odds?
Yeah, I'm just wondering. I think we did a segment on it a couple weeks ago, and I told you, I think it was at let's say it was plus 2,000 or something. I said, who would take that? Because he's not getting ahead of Jokic and SGA.
It was way higher than that, by the way. It was 500 to 1 or something like that. Okay. It was way higher than that.
And since then... I'm shooting they've shortened quite a bit because not only is Jaylen playing at a ridiculous level, but
he's now 5th. He's at plus 8,000.
Who's ahead of him?
So he's 80 to 1.
Hold on, can I guess?
Sure.
SGA.
Correct.
Luka.
Correct.
Help me God, they have to still have Giannis ahead of him?
No.
Okay, good.
I don't think Giannis was ever ahead of him on the odds.
Really?
Well, I mean, the last time we did it.
Yeah, okay.
So you got SGA, Luka.
Brunson.
Brunson is...
Which is the one that's going to just stick in my craw because I will continue to scream from any tree I can that...
One other player.
Who am I forgetting?
Who's been up there.
Cade
Cunningham.
Yeah.
Good job, Chris.
Thank you. I'm ending on that.
So he's fifth in MVP odds.
Fifth in MVP odds. I mean, that's still impressive.
I don't know what his number was coming in tonight, but I'm sure that was a pretty sizable jump.
Yeah. And I just think if the Celtics continue to outkick expectations, if they muscle their way into the top of that, like if they leapfrog the Knicks, or even if they get past, or up near the Pistons in this stretch, I think the conversation starts turning. It would help if Jaylen had a few more loud nights like this, but in the East, there's a chance that he'll be the guy. It's gonna be hard to get it's gonna be hard to get in front of SGA or Luka just because of what they do, and the West is loaded and all that. But there's a real chance. Like I wish I could get a market on Jaylen top 3 MVP.
Yeah, I think the big picture thing is that we're having the conversation,
right?
And that he's in the top 5.
Wait, how is the progression for Drake May? When did people start saying, like, was he a top 5 guy for a while and then kind of elevated as the Patriots kept winning games?
Buffalo, he started to get some the Buffalo win in Week 5, and then the Tampa win over Baker Mayfield really started to. But it was that weekend. It was the win over Tampa. I might be thinking about divisional odds. No, I'm crossing.
No, that's fine.
I'm thinking of seasons.
I'm just trying to think
else.
of what Jaylen's pathway would be. Like, does he have to have, again, because the Celtics are not playing an elite schedule in January, I wonder what it would take for him to really kind of launch. And sometimes it comes down to those head-to-head matchups. Like if let's say if Jokic was healthy and he went out there against Jokic and went.
Well, the guy that they're all chasing is SGA.
Yeah,
he's like minus 400.
When's that
right
OKC
now.
game? Like March.
Yeah, you probably have to win both of those and outplay him in both and continue.
But again, that stuff matters. That like head-to-head.
But we're having the conversation. That's the.
And all we need is one Jaylen Luka game. We know how Jaylen gets up for Luka. I'm just saying. Just throwing it out into the atmosphere right now.
Okay.
Well, I'm throwing everything out in the atmosphere. 2:07 a.m. on a Sunday morning. I need everybody to go like, go subscribe, go check us out on the YouTube page. Giles, you're a champ for staying up this late.
I can't believe you already started your car.
I know. Isn't it cool? I got a nap.
But it's been like 10 minutes. Does it stay started? Because isn't there like a limit on that?
I think actually my Tesla just drove itself home. I gotta go find it.
Wow.
Catch you next time on Celtics Talk podcast.
Have a good one.